Japan started to rise to power in the 1850s with its transition from a feudal state to a constitutional monarchy. Feudalism is a middle-aged society that is organized by rank or class. This was crucial to Japan's development, and Japan started to rapidly increase in its modernity and industrialization. With this came the nationalization and war. Japan engaged in two wars between 1890 and 1905, which significantly increased its territory and established Japan as an empire state. From these two wars, the Russo-Japanese War and the Sino-Japanese War, Japan gained control of Taiwan and modern-day North and South Korea. Post-World War I, Japan began to face economic difficulties and social unrest, which was then slowed by joining the League of Nations. But, as the Great Depression approached, Japan seriously declined economically, and the result was increased militarization and national pride. The Japanese military gained significant influence over the government and saw aggressive force and expansion as a solution to Japan's economic issues and lack of natural resources.
Right before World War II started in 1937, Japan began expanding, starting with their invasion of China. Named the Second Sino-Japanese War, this conflict, which happened in northeast China, was brutal and was marked by significant and extreme atrocities, such as massacres, genocide, and rape. The most famous battle was for the Marco Polo Bridge, just outside of Beijing. This ended in Japan's capture of China's capital. The most famous massacre, however, being the Nanjing Massacre, in which the Japanese ravaged and killed en masse the Chinese people of Nanjing. The Japanese murdered hundreds of thousands of citizens and raped tens of thousands of women in this event, commonly known as the Rape of Nanjing. Japan aimed to dominate China politically and economically, and secure its valuable natural resources. After defeating eastern China, Japan installed puppet governments to empirically rule while they began moving southward towards French Indochina. China, which had been losing battle after battle, was beginning to be supplied by the French in Indochina, which is modern-day Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia.
On December 7, 1941, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. The attack was planned for 11 months and resulted in 2,403 casualties. 2,008 were Navy, 109 in the Marines, 218 in the Army, and 68 were civilians. Japan was looking to both expand into Hawaii and damage American military power. The desire to expand their territory would soon lead to the downfall of the Japanese Empire in World War II. The Battle of the Coral Sea took place from May 4th to May 8th, 1942. This battle was the first air-sea battle in history where opposing ships were never seen by the enemy. All attacks were carried out by aircraft. This battle was again started by the desire to expand outwards and gain control of the Coral Sea. The plan was to invade through Port Moresby, located in New Guinea. If Japan had gained control of the Coral Sea, the nation would have been able to directly attack Australia. The battle was tactically inconclusive. Both sides suffered significant losses. The U.S. aircraft carrier USS Lexington was sunk, along with the Japanese aircraft carrier Soho. The USS Yorktown and Japanese fleet carrier Shokaku were heavily damaged. Strategically, however, this battle was a victory for the Allied because it stopped the Japanese advance towards Australia and set the stage for the Battle of Midway. The Battle of Midway, taking place from June 4th to 7th, 1942, was considered the turning point of the Pacific Theater. Prior to this battle, Japan had been on the offensive, capturing territory throughout Asia and the Pacific. However, U.S. cryptographers had broken the Japanese Navy's secret code and picked up on plans to attack Midway Island, located northwest of Honolulu. This gave the U.S. Navy an opportunity to prepare and launch a surprise counter-ambush. During the battle, the United States, having 3 aircraft carriers, sank all 4 Japanese ships, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, while only losing one of their own. The ship lost was the USS Yorktown. The loss of the Japanese aircraft carriers, along with those on board, significantly weakened the Japanese fleet's capabilities and morale, preventing further offensive actions and shifting the strategic initiative to the Allies. The victory at Midway halted Japanese expansion in the Pacific.
From August 7, 1942 to February 9, 1943, the Battle of Guadalcanal marked the first major offensive by Allied forces against the Empire of Japan. Taking place on and around the Solomon Islands, this prolonged campaign involved several sea, land, and air battles. The initial landings on Guadalcanal and nearby islands aimed to prevent the Japanese from using the area to threaten supply routes between the U.S. and Australia, and to establish a base for further Allied operations. The campaign was characterized by brutal jungle warfare and numerous naval battles, including the significant Battle of Savo Island, Battle of the Eastern Solomons, and the naval battle of Guadalcanal. The Allies, predominantly U.S. forces, eventually secured Guadalcanal, marking a significant strategic victory that stopped Japanese expansion in the South Pacific and began a long island-hopping campaign towards Japan. From October 23rd to October 26, 1944, the Battle of Leyte Gulf is considered the largest battle in World War II, and one of the largest in history. It was fought in waters near the Philippines islands of Leyte, Samar, and Luzon, between combined American and Australian forces and the Imperial Japanese Navy. The battle was part of the Allied invasion of Leyte, intended to isolate Japan from its holdings in Southeast Asia, and began the liberation of the Philippines. The battle consisted of several key engagements, including the Battle of the Sibuyan, the Battle of the Surigao Strait, the Battle of Samar, and the Battle of Cape Agano. The Japanese plan, involving a complex maneuver to lure the main American forces away from Leyte Gulf, ultimately failed. The U.S. Navy's victory in these engagements effectively destroyed the Japanese Navy as a strategic fighting force, allowing the Allies to gain momentum in reclaiming the Philippines and moving closer to Japan.
The Battle of Iwo Jima lasted from February 16th to March 26, 1945, and was one of the most iconic and bloodiest battles of the Pacific War. On the small volcanic island of Iwo Jima, it was deemed a strategical importance as it provided a base for fighter escorts and emergency landing strips for bombers attacking Japan. In 1945, more than 30,000 U.S. Marines were tasked with capturing the island from approximately 21,000 entrenched Japanese defenders. The battle is renowned for its fierce fighting and valor of the combatants. The Japanese, deeply entrenched in an extensive network of bunkers and tunnels, fought to the last man in a desperate attempt to delay the Americans. The U.S. forces, facing a determined enemy and treacherous terrain, exhibited extraordinary courage and determination. The image of Marines raising the U.S. flag on Mount Subayachi became a symbol of American resolve and sacrifice. The capture of Iwo Jima allowed the U.S. to use the island for air operations, significantly contributing to the eventual defeat of Japan. The war in the Pacific during World War II accumulated dramatically when the U.S. dropped the atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Launched from Tinian Island, close to Iwo Jima Island, these unprecedented attacks resulted in massive destruction and loss of life, leading to Japan's unconditional surrender on August 15, 1945, an event commemorated as V-J Day, Victory over Japan Day. The formal surrender was signed aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay on September 2, 1945, effectively bringing an end to World War II in the Pacific and eventually the entire war.